It is a March feeling in the middle of December because we have the Drake Bulldogs headed to Kansas City to take on the Kansas State Wildcats tonight at 7 o'clock. Welcome, everyone, to the Media Row podcast. I'm Justin Miller. Today's show, while usually we do spend a lot of time talking about Drake and the Missouri Valley Conference, we also like to spend time talking about just big sporting news with Sunday Night Football and the college football playoff. None of that today. None of that today. It is solely based on Drake, Kansas State, in Drake's biggest game of the season to this point, because you have a Drake team that was not put in the top 25 once again on Monday, despite being one of 5 teams left unbeaten. And now they're trying to get that respect, and you earn some of that respect and earn some of those votes back if you get a victory tonight. But without further ado, I'm going to welcome our guest to the show, Michael Admire, the play-by-play announcer for the Drake men's basketball team, live from Kansas City, joining the Media Row podcast to really break down this game, and can't wait to dive into this one. With today going up against Kansas State, did you get to watch any of Jerome Tang's press conference where he talked about Drake and talked about his matchup coming into today?
I watched the ESPN the thing on ESPN Plus where he had like a little coaches show.
Oh, gotcha.
I didn't see a press conference. I was looking for it, but I didn't see.
So during his press conference yesterday, he had a lot of great
Oh, it
things
was
to
yesterday?
say. Yeah, yep,
Okay,
it was
gotcha.
yesterday.
Yeah, I must not have seen that yet.
But he was talking about Drake's ability to wind down that shot clock and just how it puts so much pressure on the teams they face. Has that been the main difference of what you've seen when you were covering Drake with DeVries to now the Ben McCollum era, is just the different style of offense and how Drake is able to really utilize that shot clock?
But you're saying like the biggest difference?
Yeah, because I feel like as a fan, that's one of the biggest things is I feel like Drake is really methodical on defense. They're really efficient. And when it was with Tucker, DJ, it was let's get the ball and kind of run.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal of this team is still to get out and run. Uh, they want to play fast, but they also don't want to just take the first available shot. And the way that they do run their offense, they can get into a lot of action, and there's a lot of screens and slicing and cutting with authority and all that stuff to where it can get defenses kind of in a blender. And then all of a sudden, you, instead of taking a shot with 25 seconds on the shot clock that might be decent, you can get a layup at the rim with 3 seconds on the shot clock, or a wide open look in the corner with 5 seconds on the shot clock. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, Coach DeVries he had 200 plays offensively. So, he runs a ton of sets. And over the last couple of years, a lot of those sets were designed for Tucker. And now, Coach McCollum's offense it's positionless basketball, free flowing. It's all about spacing and trying to get touches in the paint. And then once you can break down the defense with those touches in the paint, spray out into the corners for open shots, or get that team chasing you. And then all of a sudden you end up at the rim with a wide open look. So
It seems like today the ball isn't going to stick on the court, that's for sure, because Kansas State averages 17 assists a game and Drake is like 15 assists a game. So it seems like that is definitely the identity of both of these teams.
in what way are you talking about?
Just
So
being able to pass the ball around, it's not sticking with one guy. I mean, we were talking after the game last week of how it's been 6 different players on Drake leading the team in points per game.
yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think Drake's offense is very free flowing and fun to watch. And I know, yeah, with Kansas State, they've got a ton of athleticism and talent. They're going to want to do the same thing, get up and down the court and move. So, um, yeah, but I think Drake's identity is really on the defensive end. And so, uh, yeah, as much as this game uh, could have some, the ball popping around and all that stuff, I think it's ultimately going to come down to who defends the best, and then uh, who gets the rebounds. Who kind of wins that battle of the boards as well.
I've been impressed with Drake's ability to, haul in some rebounds. I mean, looking at this team from an outsider's perspective at the start of the year, I thought that was going to be kind of an issue. I knew Ferguson was good at rebounding, saw the size of Abreu, but Sturts has really impressed me the way his physicality in the paint. Mascari gets in there. Man, Yao is really good at getting in the paint as well. So that has impressed me throughout this season too.
Yeah, I mean, you look back at the Charleston Classic, 3 games in 4 days, and you're playing, Miami, FAU, Vanderbilt, teams that, on paper are bigger, more athletic, all those things. But Drake goes in there and out rebounds all 3 teams by a combined 38 rebounds. And I mean, that was the story of the weekend. You know, it's one and done trips for teams down the floor. Um, Very little, second chance opportunities for the opponent's offense. And then, on the offensive end, surprisingly been able to get more offensive rebounds than I anticipated. They're really good at finding their spots on the floor to get those loose balls. Drake is 14th in the country in rebounding margin. They're in the top 5 in rebounding percentage. I do think that's that's going to be the story of this game. Kansas State, if you listen to any podcast or look at any of the message boards or whatever from Kansas State, it's all about how bad they've been at rebounding. They're 150th in the country in rebounding, and that's with 7 foot, 6'10, 6'7 across the board. So they've got the size, but as Coach Tang has alluded to a couple times, is they've got the size, but the physicality and toughness hasn't been there. They've now had 10 days off. I imagine that's been drilled into their heads the last 10 days. So it'll be interesting to see, like, all right, what Kansas State team comes out here today? How physical, how tough are they on the boards? And then for Drake, can they continue to, impose their will when it comes to grabbing those rebounds or grabbing that loose ball?
Yeah, you said it perfectly of which Kansas State team is going to show up because I was reading a few of the message boards and I can't remember. It was like a Cyclone Fanatic type Wildcat website, and they were doing a preview, and I was watching that, and the guy was talking about how, man, this Wildcat team, he goes, I would love to be optimistic. He goes, but this is just a bad matchup. You look at Drake, and they're very efficient on the floor. This will be the first team Kansas State has played this year that shoots over 50% from the field on average. So, yeah, you look at this Kansas State team, they're 0-3 against Ken Palm teams, in the top 100. Drake is just continually growing and getting better, and all these guys know each other, and you see that on the floor. While you look at Kansas State, you kind of see some struggles. Tang in his press conference yesterday mentioned how one of his relationships with the players is a good relationship, but then he followed it up by saying it's not a great relationship. So you just see kind of, from a higher conference team, some of the struggles early on. And Drake isn't having that right now from a team that I think a lot of people on the outside saw a new head coach bringing in Division II players. They shouldn't be 9-0.
I think that's a little bit of a reflection of college basketball right now. Uh, Again, we saw this in Charleston a little bit. Miami have all these extremely talented players, but it's a pretty new team uh, in the grand scheme of things, and they haven't figured stuff out yet. FAU was have a couple NBA prospects on the roster, but as a team, they haven't like fully figured out their identity yet. Vanderbilt, a different story. I mean, they were connected, they played tough. Vanderbilt, I mean, they're 9-1 for a reason. They're a really good basketball teams, a really good basketball team, and they're gonna give teams in the SEC a heck of a time. I think they're gonna be in the top half of that conference. When preseason they were selected towards the bottom, if not last. So, as new as Drake's team is with 10 new players this year, the players aren't new to each other. The coaching staff still has some cohesiveness from what they established at Northwest Missouri State. So, yeah, you have 4 players that have been in the system. Coach McCollum has, a staff of guys that I talked to him last Friday. He said, I work with my best friends. And so there's that connection within the coaching staff. And then, the guys from Wyoming, they're familiar with some of the coaches. You have the guys that stayed from Drake. They are familiar with the culture at Drake and with everything that has to do with being a Bulldog. And then they can all look to, Isaiah Jackson, Bennett Sturts, Mitch Mascari, Daniel Abreu, can look to those guys and be like, all right, how are we going to do this here now? And so all of those things have just kind of uh, meshed really nicely. And so, yeah, there was a lot of turnover for Drake, but there's a lot of turnover in college basketball. What Drake has is, an established culture and an established coaching staff. Even though it hadn't been proven to this point at D1, they've been doing this for a while in Maryville, Missouri.
Yeah, yesterday I was going through just McCollum's career numbers. They get crazier every time I look at him. I feel like
Yeah.
that dude just wins.
Yeah. And that, early on, when we're talking to Coach McCollum, in April and in June and in September and October, as like the season starts to approach, a lot of times his line is like, winning is winning. And there are different ways to win. But if you bring in winners, you surround yourself with winners, you do winning things day in and day out, likely those results are going to come. And, he tries to stay away from, winning being the only thing. It is about the process and, building the culture and attacking each day and each thing that you do with a certain level of expectation and energy and attitude and effort, and all those things. And yeah, that's just translated very nicely over to Drake.
When you look at this Drake team, is there a player that stands out to you just because, I mean, outside of the players and the coaches, you're probably one of the people that hangs out with this team the most. Is there someone that sticks out to you as like the personality of the team? Just starting to get to know this team because I watched the Field of 68 interview last night and they just seem like a great group of guys.
They are a great group of guys, and that shows the connectiveness of this team. I mean, there are only 12 of them, so quickly, over the summer, if you're just a few guys around, you quickly get that chemistry, which is awesome. And I mean, Daniel Abreu is like he is the personality of the team. Uh, he he's a self-proclaimed not sports watcher guy. He just doesn't watch sports, doesn't really care about what other teams are doing or watching football or uh, he doesn't watch the NCAA tournament. But he's a gym rat. He likes playing. He likes working hard and being with his teammates and all that stuff. But he'd rather in his off time watch a movie or he listens to movie soundtracks to get pumped up for games. So I mean, he is like I mean he's awesome. He's a great personality, a lot of fun, and Coach McCollum always says Daniel Abreu has never had a bad day, and that's pretty true.
So Tang yesterday said that this is an NCAA tournament game for both teams. I mean, this would be this is a good kind of early test to see where you fit at in the nation right now. And for Drake, a lot of fans have been asking one of the five undefeated teams, why are we not ranked? If Drake pulls off this victory, are you confident that they would get put in the top 25, or where do you sit in that come next Monday?
I mean, if they beat Kansas State and beat Green Bay and you're sitting at 11-0 and you're, right now one of the only five unbeaten teams in college basketball and you have three Power Four wins, I mean, it'd be malpractice out of AP voters to not have Drake in the top 25. Um, but I mean, there's work to be done tonight, and uh, I think that's what uh, is the life of a mid-major team. It's really hard to get games like this, a Power Five or Power Four game at a neutral site. I don't know if you saw pictures from last night, like the Power
It's
Cat
Kansas State.
is the mid-court logo. We're 2 hours from Manhattan, only 3 hours from Des Moines, so it is a little bit of a meet in the middle. But I mean, it's hard to get these games, and uh, for Drake, this you don't get a ton of opportunities. They've made the most of their opportunities already this year, getting those 3 wins in Charleston. So that's great to see. But yeah, I mean, if Drake wants to have that at-large resume, you really want this win because I think depending on how conference play plays out, I mean, I still think Drake would have an at-large resume even if they lose this game. But you win this game, you have some flexibility come conference play when it comes to that at-large bid because yeah, you're going to be rolling into conference play in the top 25.
What have you seen from the Missouri Valley so far? Belmont's been playing good. I've been kind of rooting for Belmont to play good because I think it'd be a great atmosphere that Sunday at the Knapp Center where it's Drake Belmont only second game in the Missouri Valley season and it's number one versus number two. That'd be great.
Yeah, no, that'd be fun. I mean, that would be, it's December, so
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
it's so hard to look at standings at that point. But, I was really impressed by what Valparaiso did when we were up there. I think they're kind of finding some stuff out about their team, and it showed up in that game. Drake is traditionally, doesn't matter who's on the floor, whether you're from Northwest Indiana or you got a bunch of Kansas City guys. That court and that game has always been tough for Drake for whatever reason. Um, I and like full disclosure, I've not watched a ton of Valley basketball yet. I'm trying to think of something. I popped in on the Bradley Southern Illinois game, and Bradley was running away with that. It's hard to keep tabs on the Valley right now, or hard to get a sense of the Valley right now. I would say just because, um, yeah, these non-conference games every year. Bradley will lose, a couple. They lose the other night to Santa Clara, but then come January, come Valley play when the styles have to change a little bit, and you're playing each other uh, twice in a 2 month span. It really grinds down, and everything changes once Valley play starts. So it doesn't really matter what's happening right now. What matters is what happens once we really get going into late December, January, and then through February, because all these teams will really start to find their identity. There are really good coaches in this conference, and I think there's a lot of really good talent too in some places. But I mean, I think going into the season, Drake preseason selected fifth. Like, all right, yeah, that might be about right. I think I thought going into the season, their ceiling might be a little bit higher than that. But I mean, now I think the expectations have totally shifted. And I think you expect Drake to compete for a regular season championship and for another championship down in St. Louis.
Oh, absolutely. And you talk about like how Bradley loses a few games, in the non-con and then is able to turn it around come Valley play. Ben Jacobson does that to me every damn year. It feels like you and I could be 11 and 15 at some point in the season, and I go, man, what's going on with you and I? Then you get to St. Louis, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're one of the final four teams standing. He just, like you said, a lot of really good veteran coaches, but it's been a weird year in the Valley because there's been a lot of turnover, a lot of different players leaving, coaches leaving. So it kind of felt up for grabs this year. And I think a lot of Drake fans didn't know what to expect, didn't know if it was going to be a Thursday, Friday kind of St. Louis tournament. And now they're expecting, I think, go till Sunday in Arch Madness.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I mean, that has the Thursday night Drake Invitational is a thing of the past. Obviously, like the Valley has changed a little bit with only four teams getting that bye to Friday, so it's really hard to uh, avoid Thursday. But yeah, I mean that's the expectation around Drake now. And I went to the very first workout for Coach McCollum in the middle of June or at the beginning of June when the guy showed up and he was like, "Hey, you guys know the expectations that we have set within here. We are used to winning national championships at Northwest. We want to continue to win championships here. Fans, administration, staff, everybody here, we have a championship culture." And that was the message from June 1, all the way through is we're going to compete for a championship and take that approach day in and day out. And yeah, I'm excited to see how this all plays out. And that's a tough thing. Like, kind of going back to the the conversation about the NIL and teams trying to figure themselves out. I mean, that's the same thing going on right now. There are several new coaches in the Missouri Valley Conference. Even the teams that have established coaches have new rosters, and so there's still a lot of that figuring stuff out right now. And right now, a lot of those teams are getting with finals week. You get 5, 6, 7. Kansas State 10 days off. You get a big stretch here where you get some time off to reevaluate, watch film, start to really get a sense of your lineup in your team. And yeah, we're at that point now where we're kind of starting to turn towards, right, that excuse of not fully understanding your team is starting to move away. It's not fully out of the realm, but yeah, we're starting to get that shift here mid-December.
Any injury update on Andrew? Will he be back this year or because I saw he had a brace the last game?
Yeah, he's in a boot right now. So I don't know what the timeline is for Andrew. I know, yeah, whatever he can do, he's doing right now to try to get back on the court at some point this season. But yeah, I think it's just kind of a out indefinitely type tagline. Uh, I would love to see him get back out there. One thing of note, he is in that red shirt window right now. So
Okay.
if he does come back in January or February, he would, burn that medical red shirt. I know he wants to play. I think I hate this for him because, the Andrew Aaliyah meaningful minutes, he was starting to get he played 15 minutes against Miami. I mean,
And looked good too.
without his performance, those 3 offensive rebounds and some of the stuff on defense and how he was executing on the offensive end, do you win that game? I think that's up in the air. He was so good, and he's worked really hard to get to this point. And so I hate it that an injury in practice is putting his next couple months in jeopardy here. But yeah, I think it's kind of like a out indefinitely tagline right now for him.
Last question for you here, and then I'll let you go. But for the Kansas State game tonight, is there an extra sense of, I don't know, motivation with the players returning to Kansas City? 5 players, right? From Drake, from Kansas City.
I think 6. I think I counted
Six?
So half. Yeah, we got one. Oh, yeah, it kind of depends on how far you stretch the metro because Isaiah Howard is from Plattsburgh. So that's in the vicinity as well. So yeah. Maniau is from uh, Kansas City, went to Staley, which is like 15 minutes from here. Isaiah Jackson from Independence, that's a 10-minute drive to William Chrisman. Tavion Banks, he's from the metro from right downtown Kansas City, went to Ruskin Heights. So there's three. Bennett Sturts is Liberty, that's 15, 20 minutes away. Isaiah Howard from Plattsburgh, and then Joey Mattioni, he's from Overland Park. So you have half the rosters from here, half the coaching staff grew up in this kind of area. A bunch of the managers are from here. So yeah, I mean, I'm from here. There's a lot of excitement being down here. There's a lot of energy. They were having some fun yesterday at shoot around, just being in T-Mobile Arena, which is a beautiful, beautiful arena. They've got a stripe out planned, purple and white throughout the arena. The Power Cat is at midcourt, but I think there's going to be a lot of blue. I know the section for Drake behind the bench was all but sold out when I went to go buy tickets on December 1st. And so I got a group of 9. I know a few other of the guys. I think there might be 40 for Bennett Sturts, maybe more. And then, yeah, it's not going to be like St. Louis amount of blue, I don't think, but there's going to be a lot of blue in here tonight. And I don't know. Yeah, I go back to that Vanderbilt game. It was a prime time game. And we'll make a short story long. Go back to the off season, and it's like, all right, you walk into the practice gym, you see this team practicing, you're like, this looks and feels a lot like what I saw last year. Just the talent on the floor, the skill set, the things that they were saying, how they were practicing, how they were playing. I was like, this looks like a good team here in the practice gym. How does that translate to the Knapp Center floor? And then we get to see that. And it's like, all right, they beat York, they beat Stephen F. Austin, and you're like, all right, what's going to happen when this team's back is against the wall? And then they perform. They get a big shot against Florida Gulf Coast, and they come out on top. All right, how can this team compete against a Power 4 school that has a veteran in Nigel Pack? You're on ESPN. There's some more attention to you. They get back-to-back double-digit wins. And then you go to the championship game on Sunday. I mean, they're just checking stuff off along the way. Prime time, ESPN against an SEC school. All right, how will they perform with some of this pressure now? Teams are, the nation's talking about them, all that stuff. And they beat Vanderbilt by double digits in a different manner than they beat FAU in Miami. So you got all those things. They're checking stuff off. You got a road game, a true road game. You check that off, you get a win. It wasn't pretty, but they get the dub. And then now here tonight, another opportunity back at home for half the roster, playing Kansas State. They've got more NIL money than the entire Missouri Valley combined. They've got an NBA prospect and Coleman Hawkins, or future NBA player, and him. They got probably a couple other NBA players on the roster. You look at it, but it's probably somewhat evenly matched. You got a shot to get a win here tonight, a chance to be one of only 5 unbeaten teams in all of college basketball, or to maintain that, move to 10-0. What's going to happen here tonight? And that's what excites me most. That's why you love sports. You love these opportunities. Drake has checked kind of everything off the box this season. They get another one here tonight, and this isn't a season-defining game by any means, but I'll be excited to see how these Bulldogs take on this challenge here tonight in Kansas City.
A huge thank you to Michael Admire for hopping on with us. Didn't have to do it on a busy game day, but greatly appreciate it. Means the world. And I know he'll watch this and give me tips on how I can improve. And that's why he's one of my biggest mentors and one of the people I look up to and respect the most in this industry because of that. And it just means the world. So thank you again, Michael Admire, for hopping on with me and breaking down this Kansas State game. Definitely will annoy you in the future to have you come back on as well. But before we wrap up today's show, I want to give my keys to victory for the Drake Bulldogs. Number one, no one-man show. Cannot have just one guy being the go-to tonight against Kansas State. The Wildcats will eat that up. Against Valpo, Bennett Sturts put up a career-high 29 points. The rest of the starters combined put up 21. That can't happen. That's unacceptable. You have to get Mascari the ball early. You need to get him in a rhythm early. Maniau has to be aggressive on the boards. You heard Admire talk about the size advantage Kansas State has, and now while they may struggle rebounding the ball despite that size advantage, doesn't matter. Maniau needs to get on the glass early. We saw in the Charleston Classic how big of an advantage out-rebounding those teams was. Second chance points, vital for the Drake Bulldogs tonight. So no one-man show. You need Maniau, Jackson, Abreu, Mascari, those guys to really help a Bennett Sturts. That is definitely going to be the main guy you feed and run this offense through. And you heard Jerome Tang talk on Monday about how they utilize Sturts and the other players so efficiently, and that's why they're shooting 50% from the field, because there's so many different outlets Sturts can go to. He can drive in the paint and be physical. He can pull up and fade away and shoot jumpers. He can also hit the three ball. You have Mascari, who's one of the nation's most efficient three-point shooters that he can dish out to. You have Abreu, who's a big guy that can post up but also spread the offense. There's so many options for this Drake team where it should be unacceptable to just have one guy as your go-to, especially tonight. So that's my number one key. Number two, I think just bleed the shot clock and utilize the physical defense that Drake has. Drake doesn't typically shoot a shot until about 9 seconds remaining on the shot clock, and then they use that physical defense to get the ball right back. So easily, they're spending way more time on offense and less time on defense, causing opposing teams to do the exact opposite, which will frustrate Kansas State, a team that already, it seems like season by season, gets swallowed up in emotions and turmoil. So frustrate Kansas State, and Drake, I think, can utilize that to an advantage and come out of Kansas City with a victory. And the third one, I kind of already hit on it, was just rebound. Second chance points are vital tonight. So again, to break them down, no one-man show, need everyone stepping up. Banks on the bench coming in, Howard coming in off the bench needs to help out. Ferguson, definitely with his size and his physicality in the paint, helping with the rebounds, but cannot have what happened against Valpo, where Bennett Sturts puts up 29 and the rest of the starters only put up a combined 21. Can't have that happen tonight. I don't think it will. I think Ben McCollum watched the film, and I think victories against St. Ambrose after that Valpo kind of gives that confidence back in this team of, okay, we know how we can play when everything's clicking. Now, it may not click perfectly tonight because Kansas State is a strong team, but it just gives you a bigger confidence boost. So again, no one-man show. Bleed that shot clock without shot clock violations. They only had one against St. Ambrose, but I think tonight will be a true test to see if that was truly fixed after the craziness that went down against Valpo. And then use that physical defense to really frustrate the Wildcats. It was a fun show. Thank you again to Michael Admire for hopping on with us. Means a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for subscribing, watching. You can follow us on TikTok at Justin Miller on air. Also follow me on Twitter at Justin_C Miller. Also on Twitter at Media Row Pod. And then, of course, on YouTube at Media Row Pod. Thank you again so much for tuning in. Tomorrow, we will break down what happened in the Drake Kansas State game, as well as preview the rest of the weekend in football, because we have college football playoffs starting this weekend. We have NFL really heating up because there's only 2 games left, 2 regular season games left. What will happen with the Kansas City Chiefs? They have a tough few games going. So a lot to preview the rest of this week, but definitely will be Bulldog and Missouri Valley heavy as usual. So thank you all again for joining us on the Media Row podcast. I'm Justin Miller. See you again tomorrow.